Let's go back a little bit to when you started announcing and you were working for the Cowboy. Now,
Yep.
I know you probably said it a million times, but I'd love to hear your take on it. Working for the Cowboy, Bill Watts, of course, and working for Vince McMahon, and I guess in the eras you worked for them, were there any similarities with them, or were they just completely on two different pages?
But I'm finally getting around to writing my own story, and working with a fellow by the name of Scott Williams, who worked on Bill Watts' book and Terry Funk's book, brilliant lawyer out of Houston, and Paul O'Brien, who wrote the three best wrestling novels I've ever picked up, called Blood Red Turns Dollar Green. And any wrestling fan that hasn't read Blood Red Turns Dollar Green, I strongly suggest you read them. They're works of fiction, but it's kind of like the Mafia meets the Suplex, and it's really, really cool. And it's just amazing. He's an amazing wordsmith. So I'm working on that, but I'm going back and remembering a lot of things. But the Vince McMahon, Bill Watts alpha male personality started for me in my life long before I ever dreamed of meeting either man. They started with my father. And you talk about alpha male. McMahon and Watts got nothing on my dad. Nothing. He was 6'3", 275, wore size 15 ring, 14 boot, monster of a guy. And he was old school to the core. He was my John Wayne. There was no gray area. It was, this is black, this is white, this is the way it is. And he was a man's man. So when I went to work for Bill, it was like going to work for my dad. Watts was a taskmaster. He had one way of doing it, his way, and the right way. His way was the right way because he was paying you to do a job. So whatever he needed you to do, you did to the best of your ability, unless you didn't want to cash the checks. And I never failed to cash a check. So Watts I was ready for that whole deal. It was just a new genre, new terms, new business. I thought I would have a summer job in pro wrestling after promoting these spot shows in college and being quote-unquote discovered by Bill Watts. I thought I'd have a nice summer job. I'd go back after the summer, finish my last semester of college, and I'd have some cool stories to tell my buddies over nickel beer night. And 40 years later, I'm still, I guess, waiting to go back and register for that last semester of school. So then going through my run with all the chaos and the dysfunctional corporate family in WCW, and then getting finally to WWE, Vince was a breath of fresh air because you did have one decision maker there, and that was not the case in WCW while I was there. It was chaotic. But the thing about Vince is that other than my dad, who had always had two jobs to make ends meet, and one was working on our farm, which is deadly manual labor, I never met anybody in my life that works as hard as Vince. So by the time I got to Vince, I was ready for Vince. And we had, contrary to what most people are going to think, we had when we were one-on-one, it was one of the most positive, rewarding, motivating experiences and relationships I've ever had. I love working with him. But he's a unique dude, and but he was challenging. But I was raised in a challenging environment, so it really wasn't a big deal. And I wouldn't be writing about that. People are going to say, well, I would never guess that. So I'm kind of giving away a little bit of my book. But he's the hardest working human being I've ever been around. My dad would be 1A, and Vince is still going strong, still lifting heavy, still going to the gym, but training is his hobby. He likes to work. You know, he has said sleep is our enemy. He loves to work, and he loves the business. And you know, whether you like his philosophies or his product or how he produces TV or whatever, that's certainly one's prerogative. But to think that he doesn't like the business anymore or he's not invested emotionally in it is somewhat ludicrous. And it's damn sure not because he needs another payday. He's got quite a bit of money. I think he's probably good for his lifetime, his kids' lifetime, their kids' lifetime, et cetera, et cetera. So challenging, yes, but always. But it was always. I thought it was exhilarating. I thought it was exciting because I love the business. We shared that passion, and I tell people it's this way. Look, it's like being on a coaching staff. You got a head coach. Vince was a head coach. I might want to run the ball more. He wants to run four wides and throw the ball around the field. We'll argue that point. He'll win the argument more often than not because he's the head man. But at the end of the day, we both love the game. And so that's kind of how I look at that deal. You know, we did have some philosophical differences, but I just don't believe that's a major deal. Because we both love the business. We both love our destination, but we both would be willing to take different routes to get there.